Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Living an Awakened Life segment of the Awareness Podcast. I'm your host, Susan Telford, and I'm here today with another Awareness Podcast host, Jenny Beal. It's lovely to see you, Jenny, and to have the opportunity to interview you. You're on the other side of the microphone today.
Hi, Susan. It's lovely to be with you.
So, for those of you that don't know Jenny, I'm just going to share her bio. So, Jenny discovered the peace, happiness, and ease of being that is inherent in our true nature through the direct path teaching of Rupert Spira and Francis Lucille. She has a love of science and mathematics and sees science as a set of mathematical models which express the beauty of unfolding patterns of natural phenomena, not as ultimate truth. She considers openness to examining and abandoning all belief systems to be the principal prerequisite for the understanding of our true nature. In Jenny's view, the spiritual path has no beginning and no end, nor is there any distinction between spiritual life and life in the world. When asked a question, she temporarily becomes a teacher. Otherwise, she remains a student and enjoyer of all that is. I love that last part, Jenny. In the presence of the question, you become a teacher.
Yes, yes.
So, so you said that you discovered the peace and happiness of your true nature through the teachings of Rupert Spira and Francis Lucille. So, can you tell us a little bit about your own spiritual journey?
Well, I suppose it started in a way. My search for truth started with science and mathematics, and I was fascinated by infinity, and I was fascinated by what the nature of the world was. And so in my teenage years, I was exploring that. I was not exploring anything religious because I had a very atheistic stance at that time. And so science and maths, I suppose, were a natural route. And but from there, I knew there was something more. And by chance, I ended up studying P.D. Ouspensky's teaching. That was at the Study Society, the same place that Rupert Spira learned at. And that society also, I suppose it moved a little bit away from P.D. Ouspensky, not entirely, but a bit, towards the Shankaracharya Shantananda Saraswati, who's passed away now. And he was the personal teacher of the head of that society. So I was learning Advaita Vedanta through him, but it was not the real non-duality, because it was really all the purification stage. And there was a lot of misunderstanding because we never had direct access to the Shankaracharya ourselves. We only had access through the various teachers in the society who were none of whom were fully realized other than Francis Rolls initially, maybe one or two others a bit later. So we didn't really have the right information. And so for that reason, in a way, something was missing and I needed to look further. And I looked at all sorts of teachings. I explored all sorts of things, mostly through the internet at that stage.
So what other things did you look at?
I looked at a number of Buddhist teachings, Ramana Maharshi's teaching, Nisargadatta, and their followers, and none of it quite clicked. Then I came across Rupert, who had also been at the Study Society, although I'd never really seen much of him there. And he had been taught by Francis Lucille, and so he who came from the Jean Klein lineage, and that made tremendous sense to me. And I'd already had long glimpses of my true nature, but those glimpses bore no relation to what I had been taught at the Study Society. I couldn't see the connection. I could feel, I knew that there was just one. I felt that I was the universe, but that it seemed quite wrong when I compared that with what we were being taught. So,
in what way did it feel
that was a
wrong?
problem.
Say more about that.
Well, you see, we were taught that that you had to go into nirvikapa samadhi, consciousness without objects, and you stayed there, and then somehow the world all changed after that. And it doesn't change. It doesn't change, but the way you feel it and the way you see it is different. It acquires a softness and a love, but no one ever explained that. You felt that it all had to disappear in some way and dissolve, and that was completely wrong. So and therefore we all felt it was something quite magical which we were never going to get to.
Yes.
And
there's so many teachings on that there's no world, there's nothing there's nothing out there, it's all an illusion, and they're misunderstood in exactly that way, I think, aren't they? That if
exactly.
when you're enlightened, then you're not going to see what I'm seeing out of that window, which,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
Yes, it's crazy, really. But that that was what we were taught. That was how I thought about it. So when Rupert explained that no, it wasn't like that, and I said I just want to get back to that. To that sense of everything being one, myself being everything, and one of I think the most important thing he said to me is, well, you can't get back to that. You always are that, but you're conceptualizing it as a feeling in the body and a sense of peace in the mind. It's not a state of the body or the mind, and there's so much confusion around that. Certainly we in the Study Society, we thought that it was a state of the body and the mind, and so I'd grown up with that idea for many decades. And that was quite revolutionary thinking, that it's not a state of the body or mind. You can be angry, you can be anxious, you can be agitated, and still underneath there's the peace of your true being.
I think it's so important to emphasize this, because it's such a distraction almost sometimes for people, because they have a conceptual idea of how they're going to feel, what it's going to be like, which then they project onto other people and think, well, she feels like that, or he's this way and I'm not. Therefore, either I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not there yet, or this thing that I'm trying to achieve is somewhere in the future. But it's here. It's here now. So speak
Yes,
more about
absolutely.
that, Jenny, because I know, a lot of people listening to us raise questions like this all of the time. And so I think clarity around this is so important.
Yes, I think so too. And for me, it was quite a big step to really see that uh, and accept that was possible. And then as soon as I was open to that possibility, then everything else, all the problems just dropped away. Yeah.
Yeah. So, your segment of the Awareness podcast is called Living in Not Knowing. And we're calling this particular episode today, What Does It Mean to Live in Not Knowing? And as I said to you before we started to record, it struck me that perhaps for someone who is just beginning the spiritual search, has just started, that living in not knowing may not appear to be a very attractive proposition, because I'm seeking because I want to know my true nature. I want to know the reality of things. I want to know that almost motivates the search. So what does it actually mean to live in not knowing?
It means openness. It means letting go of all beliefs. It means embracing uncertainty and enjoying it, because ultimately it's beliefs that cause so many problems in our lives. And as I was just describing, it was my belief, which I'd learned from the study society, that I needed, that the world needed to disappear, the world needed to change, and that I wasn't there yet because the world hadn't changed. It was that belief that had got in my way. And for everyone, it's beliefs. Where each of us have different beliefs, but it's always beliefs that get in the way. And it's true that when people look for a spiritual teaching, what they're looking for is a new set of beliefs. It's a big mistake.
Yeah, so we just exchange one set of beliefs for another.
Yes,
Yeah.
and your new set of beliefs might be more helpful, might lead you to a happier life in some respects, but they're not going to take you to the ultimate.
So what's standing in the way? I like these podcasts to be very experiential for the listeners. So there may be people who are listening who are thinking, well, I don't know my true nature. I don't really, I hear, I've read and I've heard that my true nature is peace and happiness, but that is not my everyday experience. So what's standing in the way? If we take as an assumption that our true nature is here now, that peace and happiness is here now, what's blocking that? What's in the way of that?
Well, the first thing that's in the way of it is the belief that what you are is your body or your mind, and for most people, it tends to be particularly their mind, but they also feel that they're limited by their body. So if there are feelings which are feelings of fear, feelings of unhappiness, misery, then those are feelings which relate to the body and the mind. And if we look at what we really are, then actually we all know that we're not a body or a mind. We just don't think of it that way. So
How do we all know that?
we know it because we know that our body is always changing, and we know that what we are is something that hasn't changed, has never changed from when we were a tiny baby. There's something that I am that has never changed. But to imagine that I am the same as a tiny baby is ridiculous. So I'm not my body. Equally, the mind of a tiny baby is very undeveloped. It doesn't know what anything is. It doesn't know about objects. It doesn't know any mathematics. Doesn't know any science. It's a very different mind, and so we know that we're not that. And so if we go back to what we are, it's obvious that we are aware of our bodies, we're aware of our minds, we're aware of the world around us. Then it's natural to think, well, obviously I'm that, whatever that is, that is aware of all of those things.
Yeah. It's it is overlooked, isn't it? I mean, when you put it like that, I'm clear. If I think of myself when I was 5, I look at a photograph of myself when I was 5. I'm clearly, that I'm clearly not that body. Clearly not. It's obvious, isn't it?
Mm.
And yet there is something that I still remember the sense of myself when I was in that little body. That there is
Yeah.
a continuity, isn't there? That
Yes.
that's overlooked. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's that continuity is what we are. And then so once that idea begins to sink in, and you stop behaving as if you're a body and a mind, then gradually you sense the innate happiness, the innate peace, the innate joy of living, that is that real self.
Yeah. And yet, I hear so many people say that they don't, even though they have been on a spiritual path for many, many years, that is not their experience. So again, what's blocking that?
Trying, usually.
Trying. So how much
Trying.
effort do we
Yes.
have to make on this path?
Well, it's necessary to give up all effort. It's a form of surrender, and it's hard for people because I think we're taught from childhood, you need to make an effort. You've got to pass your exams, so you've got to make an effort. Otherwise, you'll end up in a dead end job, and life will be awful. And that's what our parents. My parents taught me anyway. So that's so much in our conditioning that it's very, very hard to even contemplate the idea of giving up effort. But ultimately, if you do give up all effort, stop trying, and just allow things to be as they are. Just allow that true self, which you now know. You know you're not your body or your mind. Just allow that true self to be as it is. Just allow everything to be as it is.
Yeah, and even on the spiritual path, effort is often advocated. We have a noisy mind, for example, and so we're told that meditation will be useful in order to calm the mind, or
Yes.
reading and studying and doing all sorts of spiritual practices. So when are they ever useful? And when is it time to give those up?
Yes, I mean, I learnt mantra meditation at the Study Society, and that was certainly helpful in showing me nirvikalpa samadhi, which is consciousness without objects. I think that's important. I think it's the recognition that the mind and consciousness are different, are not the same at all. That in other words, that you can have awareness without any objects of experience appearing within it. We normally say, well, I'm aware of my surroundings, I'm aware of my body, I'm aware of my thoughts. But awareness, we think that some kind of object of awareness is necessary, but it isn't. And it's that discovery that you can have awareness without any objects of awareness that's really important and really helpful.
So is that the same as being aware of being aware?
That's another way of putting it, but you have to get beyond those words. It's just allowing all. The form of meditation, which is non-objective meditation, is what all the other types of objective meditations are supposed to lead you to. So in other words, with mantra meditation, you start by focusing on the mantra, and then you allow the mantra to disappear. And that leads you to this non-objective state of mind. There's nothing, mind has essentially disappeared. Because there's no phenomena occurring in mind. There's no experience, objective experience occurring in mind. So yes, that's what all forms of meditation lead you to. You can describe it as being aware of being aware, but in a way that's just words. It's not going to take you there. To go there, I think it does help to have some kind of method. No, I think non-objective meditation right from the start, in other words, the direct method is easier for some people, but mantra meditation certainly, was helpful for me, and non-objective meditation wasn't available to me. It just wasn't talked about, wasn't known about really. So
can you give us a taste of non-objective meditation? Is that possible in this moment?
Yes, of course. Well, the first thing to make it easier is if we close our eyes. The reason that makes it easier is because it cuts out some of the experience that is flowing through mind, which is the experience of seeing. And then we just allow all experience to stay on the surface, do what it wants, stay on the surface, but we just sink underneath it. It's like if you're going down into water, imagine that you can breathe in the water, and you can just go down to the bottom of the ocean, and you just leave all the waves on the surface of the ocean, allow them to do exactly what the waves are going to do. So the waves are your thoughts, any sounds that might be appearing. They're also your bodily sensations. You don't give them any attention. You don't let your attention be captured by any of those. You just allow them to be there. And you just rest in that complete silence, complete absence of anything, right at the bottom of the ocean. Nothing there, nothing moving. And if thoughts come back, you just let them go again. They're not of any interest. Nothing phenomenal is of any interest. And it's not a state that you're trying to hold on to. If you try to hold on to it, then that in itself is something objective. It's just an allowing. Rather like falling asleep, but remaining just awake, just a little bit. By taking that effortless approach, you arrive at somewhere that's empty of everything objective, but it's full of potential. It's not a blankness. So if you open your eyes and allow the world to come back in, then somehow the quality of that experience remains, doesn't it?
Thank you, Jenny. What what occurred to me is in doing that meditation and having that sense of thoughts and everything objective being on the surface, and yet this stillness and I don't know that this kind of felt sense of that I had was really rooted, really I don't know, really big.
Yes.
Not solid, but I don't know, it's hard to describe it. I had such a
Yes.
kind of expansive sense. And it occurred to me that that is the taste of the peace that is there when all of that other stuff is going on the surface of life.
Yes. Yes.
That doesn't have to stop or be different in the presence of this. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to
Exactly. That's that's the whole method. That's all there is in a way to it. That's the only other aspect is the recognition which you've already referred to, which is that feeling of expansiveness. We are not limited. We're not limited by our body or our minds. We're not limited by the universe.
Yeah.
Nothing limits what we truly are, and that again, that takes a little bit longer usually for most people, but yeah, it's that's where it takes you. That the more you recognize that background, that constant background of love and happiness and fullness of potential, then the more you recognize the unlimitedness of what we truly are.
So say a little bit more about that. What does that mean? The unlimitedness of what we truly are.
Well, people generally feel I was born and I'm going to die, and it's absolutely true that the body was born and the body's going to die. But we are not that, and they can see through the sort of experiment that we just did that they're not that, but at the same time they have this sense of I was born and I'm going to die. So the unlimitedness. So the first aspect of unlimitedness is that unlimitedness in time. That in a sense, time is not real. It's a superimposition of mind, and there are all sorts of other ways of exploring that. You can explore it through science. You can explore it through your own experience. You feel a sense of no time when you're in that experience of pure consciousness without objects. There is there is no sense of time there, because time is something that has to be delimited by events. There have to be phenomena for there to be time. So there's some reasoning associated with that, which can be helpful. But ultimately, it's a feeling. It's the important thing is the feeling, and the reasoning can. What it can do is to soften and ultimately dissolve the beliefs that you're still holding on to, that time is something real. And then there's space that we feel that we end at our bodies. My skin, that's where I end, and that's not really true. It's and again, you can see scientifically it's not true. We're breathing air, we're taking in food, even on the surface of the skin as an exchange of elementary particles. So even from that point of view, it's certainly not true that we entered our skin. And but if you do all the sorts of body explorations which are part of this path, you can feel the expansiveness of the real body, and ultimately you feel, yes, where is there a dividing line between my body and the universe? There is no dividing line. Therefore, there is no inside and outside of me. So space itself then is another superimposition of mind, disappears.
Yeah, I think that's really easy to experience just with your eyes closed. Without kind of the memory of the outline of the body, and just with
Yes.
your eyes closed, when that sensation, the sensation that we're not naming, it's a tingling in my hand, for example, just you really cannot feel a boundary. It's very
Exactly.
easy to verify for yourself.
Yes. Yes. Mm.
So the other thing that I wanted, this is something that for in my own journey has become so important because of the background of my own spiritual journey and the practices I've done, and all of the efforting that I did for 40 years. This idea, if it is an idea, of life as celebration. It's something
Yes.
that I would say has only become a reality to me in the last year maybe, and it has completely changed everything. So, because I came through teachings that were very much, as we've referred to before, that there's the world's an illusion, to kind of turn away from the world, to not be interested or involved, that almost an interest in the world or an enjoyment of the world was egoic.
Mm.
All of that sort of stuff. So to come into this celebration, this I find it difficult to put words on it, but just a completely different. It's like something just opened up, and and the thing that really describes it for me is that little bit in Little Gidding, the T.S. Eliot poem, that says, at the end of all your exploration will be to return. I'm not getting the exact words, but it would be return to where you started and know the place for the first time.
Yes, I love
That,
that quote.
yes,
Yes.
the one I didn't
Yes.
quote it
Mm.
properly, but yeah, that is my experience. That's my direct experience. So talk a bit about what is meant by life as celebration, and yeah, just tell us about that.
it's it's something that happens naturally as a result of the recognition of our true nature, because once we've recognized that we don't need to try to be a better person, we don't need to make an effort to fulfill some kind of human agenda, whatever that might be, saving the world, whatever. Because we're not anything separate. We are the world. We are everything. There's nothing that is not myself. So what is left other than celebration, other than enjoyment, consciousness enjoying itself, myself enjoying myself. So instead of having an agenda which of necessity would be associated with some kind of sense of being a separate entity, then we just have pure enjoyment in every moment, and whatever we feel drawn to do in any one moment, then that's the thing to do. Allow the body to do it. We don't do anything. It's the body that acts, and allow it to act in the way it wants to. Allow the mind to enjoy what the mind wants to enjoy, whether it's art or music or mathematics or whatever it is. And that's celebration. And that's something that we can share with other people without talking about non-duality. We can share the celebration, and they feel that they feel that sense of enjoyment, and ultimately that sense of enjoyment is the sense of being one.
Yeah. That, when you're speaking there, I can really feel emotion arise. That whole lifetime of being taught to, you have to be good, you have to achieve, you have to do something, you have to get somewhere, you have to strive. That was the falling away for me of all of that, and that following, it's what Joseph Campbell said, wasn't it? Follow your bliss. Is follow your what lights you up, what you're drawn to. It's so, I cannot articulate how radically different that is to the woman who burned out in 2016 from trying so hard at every single thing she did.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
do you feel that in your own life, Jenny? Because obviously you've had a
Very,
professional
very.
career and all of that stuff.
I was someone who tried and tried and tried. Yes, I certainly did, and there was a point where there was a complete collapse from spiritual trying. I had all these different techniques that I had come across, and was using all the time, trying every moment. And there was just a collapse into a dark night of the soul. But it was after that I had that first long glimpse of what I truly was. All the trying collapsed. Everything collapsed.
In my case, it manifested professionally. I had a total collapse, and was unable to go back to school, as a maths teacher, as you know.
Yes.
And one day I couldn't get out of bed. I was in a really bad way physically. Everything was exhausting. Everything, taking a shower I had to sleep for hours after it. And I was looking out of my bedroom window, and just thinking, I don't know how to do life. That's the way I knew how to do life, to try really hard, to be that type A personality, I don't know how to do it anymore. I don't, and it felt very dark. It felt, I cannot go on. And I suddenly had a sense that I was being breathed, that I wasn't even I was not the one who was breathing the body.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yes.
glimpse there, that glimpse of, you don't need to think to work out how to do your life, because you were never doing it.
Yes.
And what's needed is a surrender into this
Yes.
vastness, and everything changed.
It's
um
beautiful.
yeah, it was and is. Yeah.
Mm.
So you are going to be teaching 4 masterclasses for us in Evolve, called Living in Not Knowing. So talk a little bit about that. So there's going to be 4 classes in August. It's in August, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
August.
Yes.
So talk us through a little bit of that, so that I hope people have had a flavour so far, but I really want people to have an idea of what's on offer in August, because for me this has been the most life-changing thing, and ended a 40 odd year spiritual search. So
Yes.
I really want us to convey what you're going to be offering in August. So talk about that, please.
Yeah. So living in not knowing, as I've said, is really about letting go of all of the beliefs that we have. So I want to start with just looking at what we can know for certain, and each of the sessions will consist of a little bit of logical argument, some meditation, really to as an experiment, to just to give people a taste, and then questions and answers. Whatever people feel is a block for them, exploring that. So the second session will be really about enjoying our uncertainty, challenging, looking at our beliefs, each of our beliefs that limit us in different ways. All of the myths about spiritual awakening. People think it needs a quiet mind, that you have to be a special sort of person, that it needs huge amounts of effort, as we've been talking about. All of those sorts of things, which are complete myths. So anything like that, really dispelling all of those myths. It's possible for everyone. It's available. It's immediately available. It doesn't take a long time. And really, the idea that that I don't know, saying I don't know, rather than I know what I am. I know I'm pure consciousness. That's a block, It's a block. If you say I don't know what I am, all that's possible is to be what I am. I I can't know phenomenally. I can't know myself as as an object. And then the third session will be about the body, because although it's very easy to see that we're not our body, it's harder to feel that we're not our body. So that will be about the feeling side of it, and feeling, as we've discussed, that we don't end at our skin. And also looking at some of the deep and dark feelings that can sometimes arise, the fear of death or sense of lack, which are very much sort of right at the root of the sense of separation that we feel, and are very much there in the body and need to be allowed to come to the surface. And then finally about celebration, thinking about the truth, perceiving the truth, living the truth, living what you know, or living that you don't know most things. You can't be certain about most things. There's the way we interact with the world. We have models for how the world is, how the world behaves, and we need to rely on those models. But it's knowing that those models are not ultimately the truth of what is. No problem in continuing to use those models. If we drop a cup on the floor, the chances are it's going to break. It's how the world works, and so we can be fairly sure about that, but we can never be absolutely certain about anything phenomenal. And really feeling that and living that, and in particularly looking at where our thoughts come from. Do we choose our thoughts? And if we really look carefully at the implications of the understanding that we don't choose our thoughts, it's easy to see we don't choose our thoughts, but to look at the real implications of that, especially in our relationships with other people, that's very important. So that's the final workshop, which would be more looking outwards, more looking at our life in the world, our relationships with people.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm very much looking forward to that. And I'm very much looking forward to being with you as the Q&A happens and the teacher appearing. Because I personally have not interacted with you in that way until today, of course, because the teacher appeared in the presence of my questions here. But is there anything else you would like to say as we conclude this podcast?
I think the only thing to say is this: there's nothing for anyone that really gets in the way of being alive to your true nature, to knowing your true nature. If that's what you want, that's available to you right now.
And that's the crucial sentence, isn't it? The crucial phrase, if that's what you want.
Yes.
And so I encourage everyone who is listening, there will be a link to register for Jenny's masterclasses in the show notes for this podcast. So I encourage everyone, if that is what you want, and perhaps especially if you have been on a spiritual path for a number of years and have that sense that I'm not there yet, to join us in August and just to see what happens. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to talk to you today.
Lovely to talk to you, Susan.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye bye.
Bye.